And we are back from recess, and we will start with agenda item 7.01, additional discussion on the capital plan. Board members have requested an abundance of information over the past week, so thank you, Mr. Schultz, for leading that charge. So I guess we'll ask Mr. Schultz to come to the podium, Mr. Louder, and board members with whatever questions. Did you want to start going through a refresher first?
Yes, I'd love to do that, please, if I could. So if you remember, not too long ago, last Monday, we had a work session. We proposed the draft capital plan to you, and really there were three main goals in that. The goals were to review your priorities as a board, to ensure that we were including and then prioritizing the feedback that we received from the community, from the elected officials, and from staff, and then talking about the priorities of those to include into the plan. And then lastly, to provide Dr. Louder and his staff the feedback that we need to create a final capital plan that truly reflects the priorities of the board to reflect the mission of Cabarrus County Schools. So with that, there were several follow-up items that we had requested, and I just want to take an opportunity to kind of give a real high-level view of those and then allow you the opportunity to ask questions. So jump right in if we need to stop somewhere, and I may say I'll cover that in the next slide, then we can move on, but just feel free to jump in, and I'll just tee it up with some of the requests really centered on enrollment projections. So this is one of the second tier priorities that you included. Your first priority was funding. Obviously, we have to have, the plan that we presented includes $500+ million of capital needs that were put before you, and so your number one priority was funding. Your second was really looking at this enrollment and the projections and where we need schools built. So your request reflected that. You asked about the 18-19, last year's projections, the 19-20 projections. And in fact, we provided you the 18-9 projections. They were based on the March 4th enrollment. And then 19-20, what I wanted to make sure that you knew about the 19-20 projections is those are still the projections. They're not the current numbers as we know them right now in buildings, because those are in such a state of flux. Students moving in, students moving out, changing schools, very much in flux until somewhere between the 20th and 40th day of school. And then we can begin to really build out our true 2021 projections, which is the next request. So those numbers that we had were based on the Cropper study. Now I got some feedback that, maybe there's some questions about those Cropper studies, or some people thought, well, they're spot on, and there's some question about those. So those are the best that we have right now. But as we get into that 20th to 40th day time frame this year, we'll certainly begin to develop our best estimate on projections for 2021. The Cabarrus County Schools team will do that. And then lastly, there's this idea of core and design capacities. So we're going to talk about that a little bit in terms of the maps that you have in your possession. We'll take a look at those as well, and what the buildings were designed for, and then what their core capacities are as well. And Tim's going to kind of define what those two terms mean right now.
Thank you. Thank you. You may see a change in design capacities from what you saw a couple years ago when you got a chart that talked about design capacities. The design capacities you have in your plan today are reflective of the original facility design, less the seats that were done by the North Carolina legislature with the K-3 classroom size. So for example, school may have 850 students. That's design capacity, and after the K-5 K-3 class size change, it may only be 780, just because you can't put as many kids per classroom. And the classroom number didn't change, number of kids per classroom did. So that's why the design capacity numbers might seem a little different than you may have saw a couple years ago. In core capacity, it's something we try to build into every school. Every school's been, since 1995, had a core capacity. It was usually higher, sometimes 200 to 300 kids higher than the actual classroom capacity. That was to allow us to be able to go in and add mobile classrooms, so that core would have the gymnasium and the cafeteria and the media center and that sort of thing, to be able to handle those extra kids that were not necessarily housed in the building, but the core was big enough to do so. The only exception we're going to have is probably the school we're going to open up in 2020, when we built a core for 1850, and we only have 1,600, but we decided to go ahead and build 1,850, so we're going to use our core right off the bat, with the high school when it opens up in 2020. But that's the difference between core and compact design. And as stated in our previous 10-year plans, we always gave you a school. You'll see schools on the map. If they're green, that means they're under 90% capacity, which is kind of where we want to be, around that 90% range, give us about 10% growth. If it's between 90 and 98, you kind of need to start thinking about what you're going to do about replacement or additions to that school. And then if it's in red, it's over 100%, you're already behind the curve about 2 or 3 years because you're already over capacity and you haven't got a school online to build. So that's why you'll see that. And this is going to hold true through the maps we're fixing to show you as what we've done for the last 3 years to be exactly the same way. Okay?
And you'll see the examples there of Harrisburg and Cox Middle High School. So if you play that out left to right, you'll see the design capacity of Harrisburg now after the K-3 legislation. The classroom size is 810. They have a core capacity of 1440, meaning that all their shared common spaces can hold up to 1440. The projected enrollment for this current school year is at 130% capacity with 1,040 students. And then the projected enrollment for 2021, and this is after, we purposely showed this one, this is after the opening of Hickory Ridge Elementary School. Harrisburg will be reduced to 80% capacity with approximately 644 students. And you can follow the same logic out with Cox Mill High School, but you can see with Cox Mill that they are very close to design capacity even after the relief with West Cabarrus High School. So those are a couple examples to kind of play that out about how that with design capacity and core capacity.
I know several of you told us that you were very visual people and needed to be able to see on a map just how that broke down. This is a map basically indicating all of our high school districts and all of our, our elementary school districts and all of our elementary schools. As you can see, we've replaced some schools such as W.R. Odell, they're in the green. Of course, we have up at Boger Elementary School, we moved all the Royal Oaks in there, moved them back out, so they're back into the green. Of course, Royal Oaks is standing right now at about 40% of capacity. Then we have W.M. Irving and Bethel, all those are definitely in the green. And we were concerned about when redistricting comes in 2020, we did do some redistricting. So you do see some of these red dots go away as they become green dots and yellow dots. Again, you can see by building the new school at Hickory Ridge Elementary School, you can see how Weddington and also Harrisburg both went from red to yellow, which means they're definitely dropped down well below capacity. Actually, they went to green, dropped in well below capacity. The ones you still see though in red are still historically the older schools, and of course Weddington and Wolf Meadows. Again, that's the next schools on the 10-year plan. So we follow through. What we've done is continue to build schools to relieve we can't do them all 1 year. I wish we could, but can't seem to do that, so we have to build them every couple of years. The next one coming online was obviously Coachman Webb Elementary School. Coachman Webb Elementary School, once it's built for a higher capacity, would then turn that school to green, but it would also be able to take kids from Weddington Hills Elementary School. That one would become green as well. So both of those schools would drop well below the 90%, and we would have more than capacity for both of those two schools. Likewise, 2 years later, when Coachman Webb comes online, Coachman Webb would be built for a larger capacity. That would turn green, and then we'd be able to pull kids away from Weddington Hills for Wolf Meadows before Weddington Hills, bringing those back to green. So you can see how those schools continue to go into green. You see a white circle there. White circle is based upon the decision that stands as of today. It may change an hour from now whenever you folks decide to vote again. But at that point in time, right now, that's a vacate. That vacate means there's no kids there, but you see also all those kids move to Royal Oaks, and that still stays green because it's only about 85%, even with both capacities, both student populations at that school. However, if you wish to change your mind, and that goes back to, and you do not vacate Beverly Hills, and that Beverly Hills becomes red, and then, of course, Royal Oaks goes back to 45% capacity at that point in time because no other kids are going in there.
Okay. I'd jump in there and say, and I think there was a question that was brought up. Well, how does that, how does moving students from Wolf Meadow and Irvin to R. Brown McAllister, how does that help us in our growth corridor? And so you can visually see the Pitt School and the Carl A. Furr who are nearing capacity, and in that growth corridor, Carl A. Furr backs up to some of those apartments in Concord Mills. Of course, Pitt School Road, we see a lot of high growth out there as well. So those are kind of the next online to be read. And you could see a domino effect where you could do some redistricting and pull into Wolf Meadow and relieve some of those schools as well. So there's a domino effect to that does not only replace and upgrade downtown schools and enlarge those downtown schools, but it also provides an opportunity to look at redistricting to relieve some of the growth corridor in Cabarrus County.
Mr. Schultz will talk to you in a moment just how the high school did the same effect when the high school in the center of the county pulled in from all the other high schools, I think on the next couple of slides, but we want to make sure we illustrate it here from the elementary school side, should you have any questions about that progression.
So next up, now I will say that we don't have the middle school maps yet. These were actually designed today, and I'll give a big shout out to Frances Lane. She is amazing, and she produced these maps today. She was on vacation last week, and we felt it was important, she felt it was important to get this in front of you, and really did a tremendous job. So I wanted to make sure I recognized her for her effort on that. So just looking at the high school, just first glance, you see 4 in the red, 3 not. We flip over to 1920 with the opening of West Cabarrus High School. You can very quickly see the relief that takes place there. We still have one high school that is above capacity, or close to it anyways, and that is Cox Mill High School. And of course, we know the growth that's happening, taking place out there, so we'll certainly have to have some further discussions about what to do out there. So West Cabarrus High School certainly gives us some relief, and you can certainly see where that puts us in pretty good shape for now on the high school side of things, with the exception of Cox Mill High School.
Again, that's why the Northwest Cabarrus High School replacement comes into play for the next one down the road in 2024. Because it will then be able to pull more kids from the Cox Mill district over into an expanded Northwest Cabarrus High School for the extra 500 seats. Again, hopefully turning Cox Mill High School green as well.
We had some questions about mobile units. So just for the good of the order, that we have currently have 230 mobile units at sites in Cabarrus County Schools. That is a non-recurring budget item, meaning we have to go to the county commissioners and ask for that item every single year. It is sometimes difficult, like it is with growth, to project just how many that we will need. But we have asked for 20 mobile units each year for the last 4 years. And we calculate a cost of about $120,000 per mobile unit. It doesn't always cost that much, but we have to figure in the max cost on that with the purchasing of a new mobile unit, as well as all the setup. So the footers, the technology wiring that goes to that for wireless, the furniture, the devices, everything that you think would go into a classroom, we have to provide that in the mobile units as well to provide that suitable learning environment. So that is the current state of our mobile units. And then in terms of transportation, we had some requests about that as well. We will, as soon as school starts, we have about 30 buses on the roads right now between the 2 early colleges and Wolf Meadow. And then once that first day of school hits, we will have 305 buses running routes for the 1920 school year. We did receive 10 new buses this year, and we'll request an additional 10 new buses for 2021. And then the graphic that you see there, and I know it's hard to see, but it's really for demonstration purposes. You can see how the tiered system works and the pairings that go with that tiered system. And it is a complex system, and I'll give many props to Mr. Whitaker and Doors Drive for being the masterminds behind that and making it work really well and really efficiently for our students.
You also had some additional items that you had requested, some information concerning Wolf Meadow Elementary School. I think we've had included that in some of your packages. There should be a hyperlink to this for the information you should have in your package concerning the year-round school versus the traditional school year. Obviously, you only have about 1 year data. Second year data is not complete yet, so I think you'll get that when it comes in. Now, at Pleasant Middle School, you asked for some occupant feedback. There should be a hyperlink there for you to be able to see we do our studies there to ask all the occupants of that school. What do you see that you don't like about that school? And that feedback will be used as we go forward into the new program for the middle school that's going to be built out off Cochran Road. School additions. You asked a little bit earlier about were we able to add brick and mortar to those schools? And the answer is yes. Probably about 60% of our schools have a core capacity larger than the actual classroom capacity. So any of those schools could accommodate additional brick and mortar should we decide to do so. Matter of fact, most of our high schools have got 2 or 3 additions to them and as well. And that's just what we've done over the years. So if that would be something we needed to do, is looking at, we only have a small increment of needs, maybe 200 students or 250 students, and then we could obviously accommodate those with additional brick and mortar at about 60% of our schools. So that's able to do so. And with that, I guess we'll ask you have any questions, and then you.
I know there was I think Rob, maybe it was you that brought that up. I just had some questions and possible scenarios that would include Arbor, McAllister, Coltrane, Webb, Beverly Hills, and maybe resituating boundaries. And I wasn't. It was hard to hear because you were on the phone. So I just want to make sure I threw that out there to make sure we get any clarifications that you or any members of the board may need on that. So so with that, that's the last slide, and we would like to open that up for questions on anything we talked about or anything that we haven't maybe didn't cover that you still have questions about.
Board members, anybody want to start a question?
So I just want to make sure, so this is not updated on our board docs, right? What I'm pulling up is what we had last year.
You mean the presentation?
Right.
Just
So-
scroll down to like slide 20.
Yeah, I double stacked the
It's down there.
PowerPoint so that you could refer back to anything that we discussed last week. So it starts at slide 19.
19.
It starts with this evening's. I just fast forwarded
Got it.
for this presentation. I just figured it'd be easier to reference in one PowerPoint instead of jumping around documents.
So I just wanted to update everybody on a joint meeting with commissioners. The first 5 dates, somebody had a conflict with, and we're trying to get a large group. We want both full boards to be there, both senior sets of senior staff members and whatnot. So they are looking at, I guess, 4 additional dates right now. So we want to try to get this done so that we can do the capital plan in October's business meeting. So that's what we're trying to fit. But we've got a couple strings of vacations for people there that are just completely wiping out full weeks. So we're trying to get there. It's back in the county manager's hands. So
Well, I'm gonna put it, you said questions, or
Uh-huh.
I'm gonna put it back out there, because if it's not on there right now, I'm gonna put back out there to put Beverly Hills on the plan, because it's not there right now, and it needs to be.
Yeah.
So I want to put Beverly Hills onto the 10-year plan.
okay.
So I'm making a motion at this point to put it on the 10-year plan.
So Mrs. Carpenter, if you looked at the agenda, the motion for the capital plan tonight is to defer it until after our meeting. So we can certainly make a wish list of an order, but I'm just asking that we don't vote firmly on the capital plan, because we need to hear the county finance situation. Because it's,
Well,
Is that a vote on the whole
you're-
plan, or is that a vote
well,
on
you're
adding something
putting
to?
But there's no sense in meeting with them if you're talking out of both sides of your mouth, Cindy. You're saying we want to meet with them to talk about the plan.
Yeah.
Well, if you don't have the plan, you can't talk with them. So
well, now my
that's-
suggestion is let's discuss it without approving a plan, and say, where does the majority of the board want certain things to flow? Because there is going to be a financial impact. I mean, as much as we would like to accommodate everybody, there's a financial
It
impact.
needs to be on that plan, because there's no sense in us going to talk to them, and then you're saying, oh, well, I'm worried about the money. Well, commissioners, I have served on the board of commissioners. Now, the commissioners could say, okay, we don't have the money in hand right now, but the commissioners could decide they want to put a bond out there and let everybody that's sitting in this room go and vote for that bond.
Okay.
And they have that option to do that if they do not have the money in hand, Cindy.
Okay,
And
where do you want to put it then?
It is our responsibility as a board to tell commissioners, we think that this may be something that we do. Now, there's 3 of y'all that have been going, that have been trying to put obstacles in our way every time we turn around. Now, I am requesting that this board put on our 10-year plan, the Beverly Hills,
Where
put
would you,
it on the 10-year plan, and I told you to put
where would,
I told
it's down there. It's not on the plan yet, but the vote is on there. So where do you want to place it?
I
It's on
told you
s-
to put it in right with, along with R. Brown McAllister. They could be side by side.
And we just need to, so this is what we were presented last week. One board member can't direct that a plan be changed.
What slide are you referring to?
Huh?
Can we put that slide up?
Slide 7, that's
Slide-
like just the
slide
linear
7.
list.
Tell me when,
Yes, that one. So
just-
where
just-
do you,
I'm sorry, just for clarification, Ms. Carpenter, are you proposing that the funding needed change from 380.5 million to 405 million on slide 7?
On slide 7, put it in between.
I'm asking what your total is.
Well, I can't see, yeah, that would be, well, we had looked at a figure of roughly,
24 million.
they said 21 million.
I think it was it 23, 22, 23? I don't know.
yeah, go ahead.
I know the land, just for the contract, it was roughly 18.
Norrisburg study gave you a total price tag of just the building, the core building itself, $17,911,875.
Okay, what's
Okay.
that?
Then by the time I sat down with the finance director, we went through the budget just like we do with all the other projects here. And by the time we added design fees, contingencies, FF&E, technology, startup, and for the purposes of this, my graph showing the linear progression of the school from when it started out as being a repair project to this, it's about $22,807,000. Then if you include the site development costs associated with demolition and then also the off-site roadway improvements, which I did not put those in any previous estimates whatsoever, so I didn't want to, taint it. But the bottom line is, if you go to the county, you ask the county for $23,887,744 based on the budget that we have. It matches all the other budget requests for Coulter and Webb and R. Brown McAllister in that progression.
So 23?
But don't we,
23.
weren't we gonna repurpose the school anyway? So wouldn't that, I mean, the money that we were gonna use to repurpose the school, if that was the case,
That would be taken out.
That would be taken out of what?
45, so you take some out of that 45.
Take some out
So
of
my
that.
question for specificity, Ms. Carpenter, please, is are you proposing for slide 7 to have a funding needs total of approximately $400 million?
it wouldn't be necessary to have it that high because we've already got money that's budgeted for it to be repurposed.
Yeah, we'd have to
Except
take
that's
some
the
out of
low-
that
that's pretty
45, so it'd be less than that.
well, let's first talk about where with your motion you are suggesting to place, to insert a line item.
Okay, right there at you could put it in the 2024 year, right there at McAllister, you could put it right there at R. Brown McAllister. You could put it below there at R. Brown McAllister.
Because we need to keep in mind, our Brown will give us many more growth seats, and we're going to need them by
Well,
then.
put it right below there in that year, 2024 and 2025.
Before the high school. Before another high school.
Before the high school.
That high school actually will start the year before that in order to be able to finish in 2026.
Oh, that's right, because of the
It's
the
a 3-year
longer build
contract.
timeline.
Yes, ma'am.
And again, if they don't have the money in cash, again, a bond could be issued. And again, I don't wanna keep their hands tied, but again, if they come back and say, gee, I don't have it, a bond could be issued. If they say, well, we're not really sure that that's the thing to do. A bond could be issued and they could find out.
Well,
that's
they are
really what
they are studying. They have a new, what's his title? Is it finance director?
Yeah, we think so.
since Pam retired, you know.
Because I know.
He's doing a debt service study right now.
Because I know some of the board members, that's some of y'all's concern. Oh gee, money-wise, but again, if a bond's the option, because that way you get the feedback from the public, and I know sometimes as a commissioner, sometimes we would look at it, if the public says that's what it wants, and I think this full room should tell this board something, but I know it's the right thing to do, and I feel confident about it, but that's where I would like to see it put. And again, it's the right thing. These individuals, these children have lived in flux for 2 years. Teachers have lived in flux for 2 years. And it's time to make a move. And that's what I want to see.
I would respectfully ask that the motion come up with a dollar figure that you are proposing.
Well, you had 20, how much did y'all put in line for the 45 million? How much did y'all put for Beverly Hills for that 45 million?
There's not a set figure, ma'am, because you haven't given us any indication of what you'd like to do with renovation in Beverly Hills. So until you tell me, I'm gonna make a
Well, you have
training center, I'm gonna put
45 million
another school there, or whatever, that number, you know, that's just $45 million as a placeholder.
Well, how much, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4 things listed there, and you got a $45 million price tag there. How much of that $45 million was for Beverly Hills?
I have about $12 million for R. Brown McAllister. I knew that was what the scope
And
of that
that
one
was
was.
for repurposing.
Repurposing it
for
for
Mary
Mary
Frances
Frances
Wall.
Wall. Yes,
Yeah.
ma'am. That's really the only one that has a specific dollar figure to it.
Well, I wanna know how much to take out for Beverly Hills, because you got Beverly Hills listed there, and he's asking for a bottom line figure, and I wanna know how much to take out for, of that 280.
$10 million. How about
How
that?
about
That's
10
off the top of the hill.
Okay.
$10 million.
So if I'm adding 23.5.
I'm gonna say, I don't think we would spend $10 million doing a training
Renovations, if
center.
I tore the whole thing down and put another center back there, I could possibly spend that much. If that's what you decide not to do there, it may only be $5 million.
Yeah,
It
'cause
depends
none
on
of-
what you decide to do with that school.
if you remember on all the prior capital budgets, we have that big bucket kind of at the end for renovation. And that's really where that is. That's not expected to be funded in 2023.
Well, it says-
That's, I know, I'm just saying it's down on the wish list. So these are in priority needs. So only the top, Kelly, only the top 2 are funded, West Cabarrus and Hickory Ridge Elementary. I should say top 3, and the land for the new high school.
Actually,
Those are the only things that are funded right now, as of today.
and the $54 million for the middle school was considered to be funded.
I'm sorry?
The $54 million for the middle school is considered, that's part of the $168 million, is it not?
It's
still
not
part-
funded.
The $168 million figure you see here was, we showed as projects that had been approved. How about that?
Yeah, but it's not actually funded yet.
That's
So
$168.
it's on the path, but it's not funded.
Absolutely.
So that's an inaccurate figure. That should be different.
Well, I think it's terminology. It's not, the figure's not wrong, it's the terminology.
in
Okay,
3
well,
Total
we
projects
should-
approved,
We should
how
correct
about
our
that?
terminology then.
Yeah. So a portion of it is funded, as in we're proceeding on schedule with the projects. And even if you think about the architect's fees for the middle school, only the phase 1 is funded, phase 2 is not funded yet, it's in a future year. So,
So are you suggesting a $23 million cost and then reducing the $45 million by 10?
Yeah,
So-
24.
so yeah, let's just say 24 million without regard to what's on the very bottom of the page. So you want to insert it after R. Brown, but before high school. Although the high school technically, like they were saying, it actually starts ahead of time because of the duration it takes to build a larger school.
Well, yeah, they've got it set up, but they've got the years for that. Well, just like
Yeah.
buying the land, they've already did the land and stuff, so.
And this is where we need that sample spreadsheet that shows what you need to fund by year. So we're going to need that for the commissioners' discussion.
And we know that these things can vary, because they come
Oh, yeah.
back sometime and say it'd be pushed out, but I want it on this plan. And that's what I'm asking for right now, to have it put on here.
So that's a motion then?
That's a motion.
Okay, well, I second your motion.
Okay, so, but it would be inserted below the construct R. Brown. And I'm not sure with the high school being a longer build time, how we insert that, because an elementary and a small elementary is the smallest build time.
But that's where I want it.
How do you guys suggest where we put that in? Because the high school would have to get started.
High school has to start in 2023.
Yeah, so if you remember on each, we did a semi-project sheet for each of these. So I'll pull up the high school. I actually think the purchase of land is being negotiated right now. So those are projected. Those could be a little bit later. The March 21 and the May 21 and the February 22 could be a year or two later. But this is just an idea of how much prior to the completion we'd have to start. Yeah,
So I guess I'm actually thinking just because the high school wouldn't open before what Ms. Carpenter is suggesting, but it has to start before that
Yes, ma'am.
correct.
because of the timeline.
You have the replacements, you have contract for them on 2021, purchase land 2019.
For which
and
one are
the
you looking at? I'm sorry.
contract 2021.
Which school are you on?
Northwest,
I'll go back to that. Can you go back to that slide?
And that's based upon a completion date that was originally scheduled for 2024.
So those could be bumped to later dates.
Yes.
but
To-
I'm just looking.
That's
at
optimistic, yeah.
And it's got June 2026 as, it says schedule completion 2026. But it's got completion of 2026.
Right, so when you're looking at construction contract of 2022, a high school is reasonably, we're finding with the weather circumstances of when I was taking 3 years. So, and then you have to finish it obviously before that large of a structure, well before August. You know, or elementary schools, we squeeze, finish them July 31st or August 10th, and we're in there. So,
Not pleasant. but
no,
we
it's
do.
not pleasant.
And the other thing I threw out there last time is the Coltrane Web project. So depending on purchase of land and having, the possibility of not having to swing the students to a completed R. Brown McAllister facility or the old facility at R. Brown, if we were able to purchase land for that, those could actually be built simultaneously with R. Brown McAllister. So throwing an elementary school there, that would be 3 elementary schools potentially in 2020 completion in 2024.
But if you had, again, I don't have my mic on. But again, if you didn't have to purchase land to move them, you could move them to Royal Oaks and not have to purchase land to move them somewhere, and could move them to Royal Oaks.
I doubt
If
Royal
we
Oaks is going to
stay-
have those seats for that long. So I'd be surprised.
I mean, boy, if you're not moving Beverly Hills there, and you have those seats and could move them there,
Yeah, it's possible. We'd have to examine bus times and bus routes and things like that. So to say yes for sure, but we'd have to examine all those options. And then, we'd also have to examine the option of, if we have vacant seats at Royal Oaks, do we want to repurpose, Royal Oaks or expand at Royal Oaks for something else to fill those seats sooner and alleviate somewhere else sooner. So those are all discussions we can have about that, but those are all possibilities.
Yeah, and I think everybody realizes that you put on the capital plan, that's not a guaranteed promise. There's lots of things that fall into place with what can be afforded each year. A bond could certainly help. The state legislature doing something could certainly help. So, Ms. Carpenter, I suggest that we put it, just because the high school is going to start before Coltrane Webb and end after Coltrane Webb, that we insert it below the high school and before Coltrane Webb.
well, I mean,
Just because it's like a sub-project within there. It's smaller.
I'd still want it right there with, they cannot, cause it'll get pushed off with the high school being so much. I'd rather still have it right with McAllister.
Is there a possibility of using McAllister as a swing school once that's constructed? So we already talked about.
But that's what, that we
For
need a
cultural
swing
web,
school
yeah.
for cultural web to be able to fit that population there and allow them to be.
Or
able to
a swing
web.
school for Beverly Hills or not.
If you wish to bring them back across Concord, you could.
Yeah. See, Cultural Web
It's just as
provides,
far.
Cultural Web provides the relief to the schools, to Whittington Hills, which is
yes.
what we need, which is why that becomes important.
The reason the progression is the way it is in the 10-year plan is, one, I need relief at Wolf Meadows and Whittington Hills, okay? So that's why the next two elementary schools were to be Coach and Webb to relieve Wolf Meadows, and also being able to relieve then schools farther west, and then the next one being Coach and Webb to relieve Whittington Hills.
Yeah, and I think it's
In progression.
important.
Now, if you wish to push the other ones off, you push both of those off those 2 years while you're in between, put the Beverly Hills in place.
And it's important to remember that a bond is not free. The county still has to pay the debt service, so that still goes into the debt service bucket of affordability.
Well,
So-
I know that, but their bonds are less expensive than,
Yes, slightly, yeah.
Well, yeah.
The interest rate is so low right now that it's not like it used to be when it was 6%.
But still,
So-
it's less. No, I'd rather keep it right there with Brown, because you look at a high school at 83 million compared to 23 million. You can come up with 23 million a lot easier than you come up with 83 million. And
Okay,
it's
so do you
not-
want to update your motion for placement?
No, I want to keep it right below.
No, I'm
like
saying,
that.
say where you want it in your motion.
Yeah, I want to put it on the 10-year plan below R. Brown McAllister at $23 million, is where I want to put it.
I'll second that.
What opening date do you have? What
What-
opening date do you have for that?
I would go with, we've got the opening date of 2024. That's the same date they had for McAllister.
Yeah, except I think we'll probably have to use the old R. Brown for a swing school. I would just be surprised if we have the seats available at Royal Oaks by then. If we move some of Mary Frances Wall or grow Mary Frances Wall into Royal Oaks, if we're not using it for other things.
So explain that comment. What do you mean?
So, in thinking about where children can go, so R. Brown would stay in their school, their old school, until the new school's built. Then the old R. Brown is empty. So before it's renovated for Mary Frances Wall, it could be the swing school for Beverly Hills. So, but you have to get I don't say get the kids out of there, but they have to have somewhere else to go. So I don't think Royal Oaks is going to stay empty for that long, or to have enough seats. Weinkauf will probably keep continuing to grow. So I don't think we're going to have, like, right now we have this, I won't say ideal, but we have a good mix of seats available on that side of town. We're not going to have that in 3 years when it's time, to swing. So that's why I'm thinking we need R. Brown, the empty R. Brown, to use as a swing school. Before we would move Mary Frances Wall over off of 601.
That's what we've said all along. That's why we've said all along.
But you have to
we
split the
shouldn't.
timing here. You have to separate the timing by 2 years.
Well,
So
we could make it 2025, I would give you a year there.
I don't think you can get it built in a year because you have to demolish.
But-
Unless the children go to Royal Oaks now and we don't need the swing, and then it gets built.
Start the process,
What's that?
and start the process of
Yeah.
doing the property.
But we got it at 2024, they're building McAllister.
That's the goal for McAllister. That's not approved or funded yet, but the county did give us a little bit of a probably on purchasing the land that we need for the road next summer. So they haven't voted on it yet, but said that is a smaller expense that could probably be done next summer. So
And when is that, what do we have McAllister starting at?
Starting-
We have purchasing land 2020, architect 2021, and they had completion of that 2024. So
Yes.
if you completed in 2024.
It's up on your screen now.
Then I could start mine 2024.
And we'll be finished in 2026.
It's got
No, which one? No.
2024.
If you start in 2024, it's going to finish in
Oh,
2026.
if you start in 2024, but we're saying to finish our Brown in 2024. We don't know if we're going to get the funding for that timing, but
It's
we
got
know they can-
completion 2024.
yeah, if funding is available, yes.
If funding's available.
Right.
See, so that's why I'm saying 2024. We may have to change that, but they've got this one completed in 2024.
Yes, ma'am. But you said if I complete that in 2024, then you can start Beverly Hills.
In
But Beverly Hills is
2024.
2024. Beverly Hills will not be finished until 2026.
Okay.
Even though it's a smaller school,
It's a 2-year process. I don't.
doesn't matter what the size.
Yeah,
Okay.
especially when you have to remove the old school.
Yeah.
The
All right,
land's not ready.
So put the opening in 2026 then?
If that's what you wish to do.
Well, they've got this one open in 2024, so I would put it at 2026 opening then.
Okay, so we're gonna have to talk this through a little bit more, because, you know, you and I talked about my concern is Coulter and Webb. I'm all for let's putting Beverly Hills back in there and doing a rebuild and reversing the vacate. I will support that all day long. But I have a real issue with building that school before our
Coulter.
Brown or Coulter and Webb. Because if you look at that, can you bring that map back up with those red dots? That's why that was so important. So this is what we talked about, the 2021. So this is what we were talking about is, number one, Coulter and Webb's CIP plan is at 17 million because it is the oldest school or the worst condition. Beverly Hills CIP plan is 13 million. Beverly Hills, I don't want to see that school go away just because it is right there dead set in the middle of everything. I mean, it just does not make sense to me. But timing of replacing it is a huge issue for me. So my thought is we cannot continue to leave Weddington Hills and Wolf Meadow in the state that it's in. And that's the whole reason for R. Brown McAllister, and you've got to have that as a swing school to make those others happen. I am all for doing this, but I'm not for putting that school in before Coulter and Webb. And these red dots and these numbers and these capacities speak volumes to that.
When do you want to do it?
Well, my thought would be right after Coulter and Webb, because that only makes sense. I mean,
Well, yeah, but if you throw it in after that 83 million, you might as well hang it up because that's,
the high school's going to be built no matter what we do.
that 83 million, I mean, if you get them in, those smaller amounts in before the high school, you maybe stand a better chance of getting them built.
Well, but here's my
Except Cox
thought.
Mill can't sustain it right now.
And here's
so.
my thought. Beverly Hills, as long as they stay there, what difference does it make? I mean, if as long as they're there and they don't have to really move, and I see, you know, I've talked about this redistricting and how we can make some changes there to help fill Royal Oaks, and I'm so glad we have these maps. Thank you for that. That really puts it into perspective. Right. This really does help a lot. But I'm still very concerned. You know, we do have to represent all the schools, and Weddington Hills and Wolf Meadow are in huge capacity issues. So I'm all for placing it back on there, but I would like to see it move. And it really doesn't matter to me, you know, tonight, because we've got placeholders here. This could change next year. The funding could change next year. The funding can change in 2 years. We could put it in front of R. Brown McAllister, and it might change next year. So to me, it's not an issue where it goes. It just needs to be back on the plan. But I do not, if we're going to make it make sense to me, I've got to have it below Coulter and Webb, because I can't do that with those. That was the biggest issue I had before, was those two schools.
Well, do you want to put it then after that one at 2026 then?
After Coltrane Webb is where I would like to see
Well,
it go.
what year? We gotta know what year.
Well, I mean, it only makes sense to put it after 2026, and it doesn't even matter. I mean, to me, none of this is funded. You know, there's not a real clear-cut decision on any of it. When we get to the commissioners, that might look a whole lot different, and next year it might look even different if the bond does come through. So to me, just giving it a placeholder, giving it a projected year.
Okay, I mean, that's fine if that's.
And Mrs. Grimsley, just in support of what you're saying, there are students 3 blocks from Coltrane Webb who go 4.6 miles away to their elementary school. So when we're looking at,
Where's that?
no, that's what I calculated on the maps yesterday. I did that. So when I look at the edge of the Coltrane Webb district that goes to Weddington Hills Elementary, they are 3 blocks from Coltrane Webb. That's how close it is. So they deserve to be in their neighborhood too.
Well, and I think that's what we're really all saying. This map tells us everything we need to do about redistricting and rebuilding and how to make these right again. You know, I just think this is a huge help to be able to look at this and to really make it make sense. But in rebuilding R. Brown McAllister and Coltrane Webb, we really alleviate 4 school issues: R. Brown, Coltrane Webb, Weddington Hills, and Wolf Meadow. Leaving Beverly Hills, which is just my goal, to leave Beverly Hills alone, as long as they're there, and evidently that building doesn't have near the CIP issues as Coltrane Webb does, that to me just takes care of it. I am all for it, but I do not want to see the replacement for Beverly Hills go before Coltrane Webb or R. Brown McAllister. Right underneath it, and I'm good for that.
You mean before
absolutely.
Coltrane Webb?
Right, no, right, not before those.
Yeah,
Right.
after Coltrane Webb.
Yes, and that is the perfect spot to me. They don't need to leave the school, they don't need to move anywhere, they don't need to do anything different. I'm not even sure.
All right, we'll put it below there in 2026.
Keep in mind that's the goal, it's just so the public understands.
Okay, but it's on
There's not
there.
money for any of these yet.
On there
Yeah.
at 23 million,
24.
23 million,
23.8, so it's 24.
23,
Dude,
It's 23,875,000 today.
23.8.
In
And
today's
2026,
I
that's how many
mean,
years
we're
from
just
now?
nitpicking
7?
stuff now. Just say 24 and let's move on.
24 million, 23.8, but put it after Coltrane Webb in 2026. That's my motion. Okay.
I second it.
Happy, you happy.
I
Okay.
think it's been seconded 3 times.
I've seconded 3 times and I'll second it one more. It's 4 now. Here we go.
Madam Chair, I'll call for the question.
okay, I just want to make a note of the, because we're doing a motion before we're in the action, even past consent. Okay, so the motion is to add Beverly Hills replacement to the capital plan with a goal opening, sorry, I'm just writing this as we go, of 2026. Again, that's, we all know how plans go and things get juggled because we have an explosion here but not there, as for not real explosion but a growth explosion. Opening of 2026 with the current estimate of 24 million, and to be placed on the plan after Coltrane Webb. Is that correct?
Right. And that would, and there would be some adjustments to those totals at the bottom.
Yeah, and I'm not worried about the totals at the bottom right now. Okay, we have a motion on the table and a second. Motion by Mrs. Carpenter, second by Ms. Blackwell.
So, may I say?
Yes, discussion.
So basically what that means is we will be asking the commissioners between now or between 2020 and 2026 for $236 million. So we'll need to probably be going down the path of a bond and really start gathering steam on that sooner rather than later because that's an immense amount of money. to ask for. Now, they may want it
We've
broken
never
up.
had a bond that large.
Yeah, so we may have to break it into 2 bonds, so that the cash flow works. But that's essentially what we're getting ready to do. And when you look at the numbers for 2023 to 2026, it's over 175 million just in that period of time to build schools. So that's what we have to begin to get our minds wrapped around when we go to this meeting with the commissioners, is that's what we're asking for as a board, okay?
Okay.
Can I ask a question
Yes.
for clarity, please? So, Coltrane Webb could be built in 2024 if the funding's
Coltrane
there.
Webb stays where it is with the 24-26 timeframe.
Okay, and so if it comes down to choosing between Coltrane Webb being completed in 26 and Beverly Hills being completed in 26, did I hear that? And we didn't say it this way, but does Coltrane Webb take priority?
I believe so because of growth seats.
That's
So,
the way I
yeah.
understand it.
Okay, all right, thank you. Thank you.
But if something breaks, there again, because both of them are real old. One of them's 65 years old, the other one's not, so.
But Carolyn, people in their 60s aren't old, right?
They're not. But one of the things too, one thing to
I'm teasing
consider,
her.
one thing I want to say.
Oh, yeah.
One thing I want to say, and one thing that needs to be said that hadn't been said. These people have waited 65 years for things, and they have funded everybody else. They've funded West Cabarrus, they've funded Hickory Ridge, they've funded things in Harrisburg. It's about time they get funded. And so I think
Okay, Ms. Grimsley called for the question. So, board members, all those in favor of the motion on the table, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? We got a 7-0 on that one. Miracles. Okay. So now, shall we proceed with the rest of our agenda? We can excuse Mr. Schultz and Mr. Louder, which they'd be happy to sit down. Okay, board members. So we kind of advanced on the one vote, but we'll revisit that. So we have on the consent agenda the beginning teacher support plan, the approvals of policies on the first reading as listed, and those policies on second reading, the HVAC renovation at J and Freeze, phase 3 of that, and the Cherry Road Oracle statement of work contract as presented. I have a motion to approve those.
Second.
Mr. Harrison made the motion. Mr. Shoemaker made the second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so that's a 7-0. Now we'll go down to the action agenda. We had one policy pulled out at board member request, and so Ms. Reimer, if you want to.
Yeah, Mr. Walters wanted to review
I'm
that.
okay with that wording. It was just a question of, should somebody have a right to go through the grievance process through the if they were exited from the program?
Could you,
Should someone have the right to go through a regular grievance process if they are exited from the program? And that's the last statement there on number 7 is the one I have a question about. It does say here we have a review by the superintendent designee, which is good.
Mr. Shaw, I think that's what he's asking is, should the parent have the right to go to a grievance for number 7 if they're no longer in the program?
I'm wondering if because the statement is in violation of a specifically identified, then there's no grievance process.
Correct.
You're in violation of a law.
Well, I think the way, what I was intending here is that this is a program choice, so parents voluntarily choose to go into the program, and so it's not really an assignment. An assignment does give an automatic right to an appeal, whereas if this is a choice subject to certain rules, and those rules are violated, then it just kind of automatically reverts. It would not be appealable unless it's in violation of a law. And that's the standard rule we have for board appeals, If there are decisions that are taken in violation of law or policy, then there is an appeal. But if it's not, then it's not, if there's no violation of law or policy, then it would not be appealable. It's just an administrative decision. That's the way I was intending to have it mean.
And I do believe that the policy committee did discuss this at length, and we also added a step to this one as well, with it coming through the superintendent or designee at this point. So ensuring that parents had full rights and were notified in a timely manner and had the opportunity for intervention. So I think the policy committee felt good about that.
Yeah, I'm just going from personal experience that you'd like to have those options.
Yeah, I think there's, with a program choice, that there's a point where you give up the option because you broke the rules of the program.
Does the board agree with that, or?
I mean, I do. I think we need to hold tight on that. Going into a magnet program is a privilege, not a right. So
These are very similar to our transfer policies as well. So when schools accept students that are not in their regular zone, then there have to be some pretty stringent rules there. Otherwise, could end up in a mess at a school. So we really are proud of our program choice. We want our parents and students to take advantage of it, but we also want to make sure that they do meet the expectations. And truly, a lot of our expectations are not horribly difficult to meet. Some maybe for some students, but most of the time our students do well. So these are rare.
And just to add to that, when the student is exited, they're not removed from the system. They just go back to their school of assignment, which would be their normal assignment anyway.
okay. Board members, do I have a motion to approve policy 4154 as presented? Mr. Harrison made the motion. Mrs. Carpenter made the second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Okay, so that passes with a 6-1. Okay, agenda item 9.02, the architect contract approval for the new middle school. Mr. Cohn, you're going to represent this?
I am. Madam Chair, members of the board, I'm here tonight to make a recommendation for the approval of the architectural design contract for the new middle school scheduled to open in 2022. As we discussed last week at the work session, the funding for this design services is broken into 2 phases. Phase 1 will be fiscal year 1920, and phase 2 will be 2021. I'll be happy to try and answer any questions you may have from last week.
Mr. Shoemaker?
So you have the first phase would be the 1.7 million,
Correct.
and you feel like we will be able to take care of all of that money by the end of this fiscal year?
That is correct, yes, sir.
And that is funded, right? It's
That
in the
is-
funded category.
Yes.
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 Mr. Cohn, can you refer me to that section? And I know you sent it in an email, but it's quicker if you just tell me where it was about if the square footage doesn't change, the price doesn't change.
Who's driving this? Dane? Keep going.
Oh, it's way down?
Yeah, it's way down. Keep going. It's a couple pages from the end, Dane. Keep going. Oh, slow down now. Keep going.
6. Do you know what number it is? Or are you just looking
Oh,
for it?
no, I'm just going to recognize where it is. I'll say it's the 11. Oh, right there. Stop. Go back up.
11?
Article 11.1.
Article 11.1?
Mhm.
Okay.
Would you like me to read it?
Or for the public's benefit, go ahead and read it.
Sure. Stipulated sum of $2,250,000 in 2 phases for the basic services defined in Article 3 shall be due the architect and its consultants. Phase 2 is conditioned upon funding in fiscal year 2020, 2021. If after meeting the owner, construction manager at risk, and other collaboration groups, the costs associated with the project are found to require an increase in the established construction budget of $43 million, an increase in the budget shall not be grounds for additional compensation to the architect if the gross square footage of the building remains at or less than 180,000 square feet.
And that is intended with the volatile construction climate we have. That is intended to protect us against an increase of fees simply because of an increase in price. So I'm concerned though about basic services. So is there any ambiguity to that could say, oh, these aren't basic services?
No,
I really have no tolerance. My point is I have no tolerance for additional fees. None. So.
Sure. The basic services are all the services defined in the scope of work, which
Okay.
plumbing, mechanical, electrical design, civil design, architectural design, structural design. Those are the basic services.
That's up at the beginning of it where you.
Correct.
Yeah.
Who's being
Contacted, correct.
et cetera.
Yes, sir.
So can I turn this around? Are we saying that this facility cannot be more than 180,000 square feet?
That is our program design, yes, sir. I guess
Or-
in theory
or-
it could
or else
be.
this
If
clause
the
is-
program changes and the board chooses to put more students in that school, then it would have to go higher than 180,000 square feet possibly. But the program is for 1,200 students at 180,000 square feet.
Well,
I was most concerned about the volatile construction cost climate, and that if it cost us another $2 million, that we're not also obligated under a percent arrangement for the same space to pay simply because the construction cost increased. That there's no additional work being done, it's just a cost of materials. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Labor's the big thing. Okay, so board members, any questions? Ms. Carpenter? Okay, I thought maybe you're. Any other questions? Is there a motion to approve the architect contract with the H. Kreisberg Hughes Architects for the new middle school as presented?
So moved.
second.
Motion by Mr. Walter, second by Mr. Harrison. All in favor say aye. Aye. And those against? Ms. Carpenter? Are you aye or nay? I know, I'm right there with you. Can we do half and half?
I voted no the last time, so
Yeah.
maybe I'll stick with that. I'm gonna stick with that. I was there with that last time, so I was
Yeah.
sticking with my nose. I didn't like it. I'm sticking with my nose.
Okay.
I'm gonna stick with my nose.
I'll go with aye.
Well, yeah,
We're having half.
half and half. I'm sticking
Okay,
with my
so
nose.
that is a vote of 6-1. Is that accurate, board? Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Cohn. Okay, we kind of jumped ahead on 9.03.
Do you want me to give you that motion back again?
No,
when
ma'am.
I- Okay, all right.
Now, I did this motion to defer the vote on the rest of the capital plan until after a joint meeting with the commissioners. Do we even need to vote on that now? Or we agree with the rest of it as it's on the list?
I don't think so. You want me to table that one? I'll table it.
No, I don't like to
It's
table
tabled.
things. We can decline to vote, right?
Yeah.
No, this is just the guidance. This is not the motion itself.
Nobody makes the motion,
Yeah.
then it.
Okay, shall we skip
no
over
action.
9.03 for the time being?
I'll make a motion on the next one.
Okay, 9.03.
Well, I'm sorry, should the motion on Beverly Hills be set for the November agenda?
No, the 9.04 on the decision to vacate?
I'm
After,
making-
after we speak with the commission,
Yeah.
He's talking about 903.
903.
I need to ask, the audience doesn't get to participate in this part, so you can all,
Now, wait, I need clarification on that.
yeah.
David, why do you think we need to vote on 904?
if we are deferring,
You said 903.
I'm sorry, are we deferring the agenda item about Beverly Hills?
Which one? The 9.04?
9.04.
Okay, we're bypassing 9.03. We're on 9.04.
Right.
Well, what's the board's pleasure?
I'm making, we're on
Let's answer
9.04.
David's question.
Is that what you were asking?
We don't intend to defer.
Defer it till November? That's what this,
No.
that's what this is.
No, I'm making a motion that we reverse I'm making the motion right now.
Yeah.
I'm making a motion that we reverse that was mine to put on the agenda. I'm making the motion that we reverse
So the motion is, and as it's written down, is remains open. That's your motion.
right.
Because I don't want us to get confused on the wording of vacate and veto and reverse, and just say what you want to have happen.
Okay, I want to, what, now you've got on there,
That Beverly Hills remains open. We've already done the capital plan vote, so we don't
Okay.
need to do that again.
that it remains open.
I second.
Reverse the vacate.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion?
So what effect does that have now?
Huh?
What effect does that have now?
That means we need to find the next item, operational cost savings. So we have an obligation to do
Okay,
that.
so these are all sequential.
Yep, that's why they're in that order. Okay, so any discussion on this motion? All those in favor say aye.
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 So Holly, it was aye? Okay. And against? Nay.
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 Now, well, after that, I'll make a comment about that, because you made the comment about the cost savings, and I do have a comment on that.
Okay, so the motion passes to keep Beverly Hills open at this time by a motion of 4 to 3, a vote of 4 to 3, right? Okay. Okay, so the next motion becomes challenge. Excuse me? Wait, I can't entertain questions.
I don't want to be entertained, I just want to know who voted again.
No. Mrs. Grimsley, Mrs. Carpenter, Mr. Walter, and Ms. Blackwell voted yes. Myself, Mr. Shoemaker, and Mr. Harrison voted no.
I just wanted to make a statement. I said I wanted to bring some clear skies for our children at Beverly Hills, but one of the things you made a statement that you said that we should, you made a statement about the teacher supplements, and I just said, that should be, it was unfair to make that one school and one group of students be targeted for that. That should be the responsibility of all the schools to help out with this. And I think that we should ask all our principals to look at their operating budget and see what savings could come, that they could come up with, and because it benefits all our schools, not just Beverly Hills. And all the teachers should be interested in that. And it shouldn't just be Beverly Hills or one school. So I think we should ask all our schools to look at their operating budgets,
Well,
and not just one school.
Yeah, I believe that's the board's responsibility to make these decisions. And the schools, as Ms. Klutz has provided all of us, and it's on the agenda actually, some tools to determine where money can be saved, because this has to be a solid recurring amount of money.
Yeah, but we don't know we don't go into each one of the school
But it's not,
budgets.
I don't believe it's an individual school decision. These are system-wide decisions. So do we tell Beverly Hills you don't have an assistant principal anymore because it comes out of local money?
But
You know.
what I'm saying, operating budgets, they know their operating budgets a lot better than
It's
we
very
do.
small though. Yeah, that's not a significant, that's almost nickel and diming schools to do that.
The schools would not know their operating budget, so the majority
They
of
don't know what they pay for
Excuse
their
me,
power.
just a moment,
They don't
please.
pay their own
No,
power.
they do not.
Oh, they don't?
No. So 90% of our budget is staff and benefits. They get an allotment. They get a number of teachers. They get a number of staff positions. So they don't manage or control that. I do. We do. The board does. So they do not pay their utility bill, they do not pay for their trash pickup, they do not pay any of that stuff. That's handled here at this level. The only thing that they really have any control over is their ADM instructional supply dollars. That's about it.
And that's a small amount, comparatively
It's-
speaking.
Mhm.
So that's not a huge bucket.
Right.
So,
Okay, that answers one of the questions.
and I think Ms. Klutz sent us all out the summary of the electrical bills, so you can see that that's not really an opportunity with how it fluctuates from year to year. You
Well-
can't say just take that off the budget.
Yeah, the last 2 years was the only 2 years we made some on it, it looked
Well,
like.
we didn't make it, we just didn't spend it all.
And we're also in arrears for the 2 or 3 years prior to that. So
Yeah.
we're at a wash. We're not in the positive.
So suggestions on removing?
So I have a quick question. I said, now that this has all gotten to be a topic of the community, I've gotten several phone calls, and I hate to throw this on you at the last minute, and this is maybe a question more so for Dr. Hill. But I've had a couple teachers to call me and tell me that there's issues with our TE21 Mastery Connect. Mastery Connect, am I saying that correctly? TE21.
Is that related to budget?
Well, we're talking about where to pull stuff from, so I was wanting to talk about programs. Isn't that operational monies?
So what is it and how much is it?
I don't know, that's what I'm getting ready to ask.
Having that in advance, I don't know.
I
just
know,
off
and
the
that's what I
cuff
was gonna say.
where
I
that's
just
paid.
got that phone call
Yeah.
coming down the road this
It
afternoon.
could be instructional, it could be state, local, federal, it could be any of those.
Okay,
I
so let me just
don't
put
know.
something out there. Since that decision really doesn't have to be made tonight, I have gotten a lot of phone calls, and I'm sure the rest of you have too, about looking at items and programs and things that are within the system that I haven't got a chance to get to you. So could we table this to the September meeting since y'all were willing to table
Well, we
the other?
previously committed, we put it off and
Well, if we're
committed
not
we would
gonna make-
decide tonight.
But if we're not gonna make the commissioner meeting that we've said, and that's not gonna happen, I would like to see, I would like to see us table this part of it to do a little bit more work on that and get some more questions answered. I don't see the urgency of doing it tonight.
I guess my concern is Ms. Klutz provided us a lot of information. There were very little suggestions, very few suggestions, because it is a hard thing to pull. So I don't know where we're going to get in another month or two, is what I'm concerned about.
Well, I would like to see us put it off until September just to get some more of that information that I just got some recommendations this afternoon. And I'm not familiar with a lot of that, so I don't know. Is that a big ticket item in our system? Have we looked at it to see how it's working? If it's, you know, I want to, that's why
I don't think that's, I'm just trying to remember, I don't think that's that enough money. Anyways,
I have no idea.
Nor do I.
Right,
I would.
and I didn't think you
we,
would, so.
We have, just in preparation of this meeting, I looked to see how many accounts we have. We have over 43,000 accounts. So it's pretty difficult for me just to come off the cuff.
Off the cuff.
Well, and that's
tell
why
you
I'm not asking you
what
to.
it
I'm just
is.
asking because of, I know, I get it. Because of some of those conversations that I've had late in the day. I would like to see us table it, and I'll make a motion that we table this agenda item until the work session for September.
I'll second that.
Until the work session? You're saying to vote at the work session?
Well, no, but we
Or just
usually
put it on the
discuss
work
at
session and
right.
vote on the business meeting? Okay, we have a motion by Mrs. Grimsley, a second by Ms. Blackwell. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. You're an aye?
I guess.
Oh, well, you are or you aren't.
Are we gonna come up with an answer today? Is it possible?
I don't think we're going to come up with an answer in a month, so I just don't think.
Well, if we're not going to come up with an answer in a month, we're definitely not going to come up with an answer today.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to keep getting pushed off, and we need to find that money.
I think this is the third go-around that we have
Yeah.
kicked that can down that proverbial road.
We
And
have kicked the can of Beverly Hills down the road since I've been on this board.
For 2 years.
So I'm thinking, I'm asking respectfully that there's is some serious discussion that needs to take place, and there is some more questions that I have, so I would like to see it tabled.
Okay, so Rob, how are you voting?
I'm going to vote aye if we can get a resolution in September. Can we do that?
I don't know.
But everybody needs to help. It doesn't need to be, well, you need to do it. Everybody needs, this is a joint effort.
Okay, so we have a motion that passes to table it by 4-3. Is that correct? And I don't want to table it again. I wanted a discussion tonight, so.
nay.
Mr. Shoemaker? Okay. Okay, so that's a 5-2 to table it until September work session and business meeting. And keep in mind in September, we have one less day between the meetings, so ask staff before the work session. Don't, have everything in well before the work session. Okay, so sorry staff, we're going to keep going down the path. So that is our last agenda item. I'll take a motion to convene in closed session.
Second.
Mr. Shoemaker and Mrs. Carpenter, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, we'll say goodnight to our audience here and to our viewing audience. And we will now convene in closed session. Thank you.